All right, let's talk about inequality. That example I started with at the beginning, I only have a couple minutes. Go back to the beginning. That's what you're supposed to do, tie up the lecture. It's make everybody feel like everything's complete, even if the middle was complete junk and no one knows what the hell I was saying. The example I had at the beginning, it's only two of us. It's complicated. What we really need is, let's include the kids. And her kids are getting a little less good child care, because she's better at me at that too, but she's concentrating on other stuff. Now they get other things. They get other things, but they don't get the child care. What's the equivalent there? The equivalent there is some sectors of our economy are pushed out by things we don't have a comparative advantage in. Low-tech manufacturing. Steel. Most kinds of steel, not all. Trade, more opportunities for me to provide, for her rather, to provide me shelter and clothing. It's great for people, the people who are helping her with shelter and clothing. I had to bring in more people into this, right? Because we have to have a distribution effect. But for the people who are involved in childcare, and all right, let me start at the beginning. She has a staff that does all these things. She's just the manager, and I'm the manager. If my staff starts taking over childcare and food, her staff is in trouble. Now her staff that's involved in clothing and shelter, it's great. They can do it for me now. They can hire more, they can do more, it's great. But the staff that's less competitive for her, even if it's better than me, it's absolutely better, but it's less competitive in terms of comparative advantage, they get hurt. That's where inequality comes in. Some things can't be traded, but a lot of stuff can be now. Services can be traded. I can go give this lecture someplace else. For stuff that can't be traded, it doesn't matter. You're not subject to more competition. For stuff that can be traded, which is a lot, you're subject to more competition. And some people lose in that competition. There's no way to avoid that. The country gains. As strongly as I said, the country gains every single time. And anytime someone tells you the trade deficit costs jobs, they're not telling the truth. That doesn't mean that every single person in the country gains. We make a deal. Both of us are better off. Both of our operations are better off. But the people who are providing child care for her are not necessarily better off. They gain because there's more food, there's more clothing, there's more shelter, but they got less work. There are inequality implications to that. Now, if all the people who lost were at the top of the income heap, then you'd be like, all right, well, we just made things more equal. I'm not happy that they lost the money, but it's not causing inequality. But if they're not at the top, if they're not above average, if they're below average already and they're suffering because they're not as competitive, the whole country is gaining. They're even gaining. They get cheaper clothing. That's great. But they're also losing. There's a differential effect. Let's just make it simple. The US is great at everything except making steel. Everybody gains from all the trade. We export more, we have bigger markets, we have more money. We also all gain from the cheaper steel. We get cheaper, better steel, that's great. We can use it in all of our products. But the steel workers also lose. They gain, but they also lose. And if they were at the top of the heap, it wouldn't be a problem. But if they're not, if they're the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th decile of income, you have an inequality problem. So the real issue here is not that trade costs jobs or it reduces GDP. Who cares? It's that depending on where the parts of the economy you don't have comparative advantage, where they are on the income scale, there is an inequality issue.